Plastics. They're everywhere these days. More and more plastic parts are replacing ones that used to be made of metal, and cars are no exception. Today, plastic car parts include bumper covers, fender extensions, fascias, grille openings, stone shields, instrument panels, trim, fuel lines, and even engine parts. If they were damaged in a collision, most of these parts would not be repaired, they'd be replaced. So what do you do when you get a car with a damaged plastic part? Well, the first thing to do is determine whether to repair or replace it. This decision is based on an assessment of repair time versus the cost of a new part. If the part has sustained only minor damage and is an expensive part, like a bumper cover, repair is often the best option. However, if the part has a textured surface like this, you'll never be able to match the texture in the repaired area, so it would have to be replaced. If the part has sustained major damage and is available from the original manufacturer or from an aftermarket source, then replacement is the best option. You might consider repairing a badly damaged part when that part is difficult or expensive to replace, like in a customized or vintage car. You'll develop a better feel for judging repair time and deciding whether to repair or replace as you get more experience. In the rest of this program, we're going to cover the procedures you'll need to know to repair a plastic part. Then we'll talk about the process of replacing a part and what steps you'll need to go through to repair that part to go back on the car. But before we do that, let's go through a few safety guidelines for plastics repair. Many of the products you'll be using are highly flammable and dangerous when inhaled, and some plastics produce poison gases when exposed to heat or flame. So, before making any plastics repairs, make sure you follow these safety precautions. Wear rubber gloves when handling adhesives and a respirator to avoid inhaling resin vapors. Wear a dust mask to keep dust particles out of your lungs, and work in a well-ventilated area. Have a fire extinguisher nearby. Read carefully the warnings and instructions on every product. Mix only the amount of material you need and use thinners with caution. Protect your skin from dust with long sleeves or paint suits. Use a protective skin cream on any exposed areas of the body. If resin or hardener comes in contact with your skin, wash with borax soap and water or alcohol. Always wear safety goggles. Keep brake fluid, solvents, and gasoline off plastics and use only manufacturer-approved cleaning solutions. Now, if you use products that are not recommended, your job may fail and you may cause a safety risk as well. If you have any questions about safety procedures, check your shop rules and the manufacturer's instructions for the products you're using. Safety is important. Follow these few simple rules and you'll keep yourself and those working around you safe and healthy. Okay, so how do we repair plastic parts? The most common method is to use a two-part epoxy-type repair adhesive. Two-part adhesive consists of a base resin and a hardener. Most two-part adhesives come in dispensers that contain both. When extruded and properly mixed, the adhesive cures into a material similar to the piece being repaired. You've probably noticed plastics can be either rigid or flexible. If the part bends, it's considered flexible plastic. If it doesn't, it's the rigid kind. There are two basic kinds of adhesives, those used with flexible plastic parts and those used with rigid plastics. Check the instructions on the product to make sure it's appropriate for the type of plastic you're repairing. Okay, now that you've selected the proper adhesive, let's prepare the part for repair. Start by cleaning with soap and water. Rinse and wipe the surface dry with a clean cloth. Next, use a water-based plastics cleaner and degreaser to finish. Avoid a lot of rubbing during the cleaning process. With plastics, the more you rub, the more static electricity is created. Static electricity attracts dust and can show up in the final finish. Never use lacquer-based products or gasoline to clean plastics. They're not compatible with finishing products. You'll notice throughout our plastics repair process, we do a lot of cleaning. These cleaning steps are important. If you don't clean the product properly, the adhesives or the paint job may fail. Then you'll have to clean up the mess and start all over again. The next step after cleaning with a water-based degreaser is to grind away any torn edges in the repair area and taper the surfaces around the damage to promote good adhesion. Once the grinding is done, use a sander with 180 grit paper to feather the paint edge around the damaged area. Blow and wipe away any dust. Next, spray on an adhesion promoter. The adhesion promoter does just what it says. It promotes adhesion of the filler and paint. It does this by actually softening the plastic. Then, when adhesives and paint are applied, they chemically bond. This eliminates any cracking, chipping, or peeling. With the surfaces of your part properly prepared, you're ready to apply the adhesive filler. Many adhesive fillers now come in dispensers that automatically extrude the adhesive and hardener in the correct proportions, so you don't have to worry about measuring each part. Fill in the damaged area with adhesive. Dispense only the amount of filler you'll need for the repair. Use the spreader to match the shape of the part as closely as possible. If the damage is deep, you may have to apply more than one coat. It's important to use clean tools when you do this. Dirty spreaders and mixing boards can contaminate your mixture and keep you from getting a smooth finish. When you've finished applying the adhesive, allow it to cure. Cure times vary depending on the product you're using, the temperature, and the humidity. The ideal curing temperature is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. But check the adhesive manufacturer's recommendations for curing time. You can also use a heat gun to speed up the curing process. Once cured, sand the area with 80 grit paper. As you sand, feather out the edges. After this initial sanding, examine the contours for low spots or pinholes and clean away the dust and grit. Next, you'll use a glazing putty to fill in the smaller imperfections. Mix the glaze and apply it to the repair. After applying the glazing putty, allow it to cure properly and then sand the area again with 80 grit. If no additional adhesive is required, finish by hand sanding the area first with 180 grit and then with a smooth 240 grit. Wipe away the dust and clean the area with soap and water and a plastic cleaner. Finally, apply a coat of surfacer before painting. Surfacer is the workhorse of our industry. It fills in all the fine lines created during sanding and provides a smooth, consistent surface for the final finish. Once the surfacer has dried, apply a dry guide coat. The guide coat reveals any imperfections that'll show up in the final finish. Then finish by hand sanding with 400 grit dry or 600 grit wet depending on the top coat to be applied. Sometimes in plastics repairs, it's necessary to reinforce the damaged area, especially if there are deep gouges or tears. To do that, begin by removing any cracked or splintered material with a grinder or saw. Scuff sand around the hole with 80 grit sandpaper and bevel all edges to promote greater adhesion. Also, if you're repairing a hole, you'll need to sand the backside of the area to be repaired. Clean both the front and back of the damaged area with soap and water. Clean the entire area with a water-based degreaser. Then apply an adhesion promoter to the back to ensure that the adhesive will adhere properly. Now we're ready to apply the reinforcement. Typically, we use a piece of plastic netting with a peel-away plastic backing. Apply the adhesive to the netting side of the reinforcing piece. Then apply the patch, adhesive side down, to the back side of the repair area. Let the adhesive cure. When the adhesive is properly cured, peel off the plastic backing and remove any excess netting. Then apply a coat of adhesion promoter to the repair area on the front side and let it dry. Fill the gouge on the front side with adhesive filler. Again, use the spreader to match the shape of the part as closely as possible. Allow the area to cure properly. Once the adhesive is cured, rough sand the area with 80 grit paper and inspect the contours of the repair when you're finished. Apply additional adhesive to fill in any low spots or pinholes and allow it to cure. If no additional adhesive is needed, finish sanding first with 180 grit paper and then with a smooth 240 grit. Next, you'll use a glazing putty to fill in the smaller imperfections. Now the repair is ready for surfacer. Apply a guide coat and a final fine sanding with 400 grit dry or 600 grit wet depending on the top coat. All right, we've talked a little about plastic repair, but what do you do if you have to replace a plastic part? Replacement plastic parts fall into two categories, primed and raw. Primed parts must first be washed with soap and water, cleaned with a water-based degreaser, and sanded before applying a final finish. Raw plastic parts don't need to be sanded, just washed with soap and water and degreased. Both primed and raw plastic parts should be sprayed with an adhesion promoter to ensure that the paint will adhere properly. The first step in applying a finish to a plastic part is to spray on a coat of sealer. This should be done in a paint booth to eliminate dust, lint, and any other contaminants. Sealer must be applied to raw and primed plastic parts as well as parts you've repaired. Remember, whenever you enter a paint booth, be sure to wear a paint suit, gloves, and a respirator. The paint suit protects your clothes and also keeps street dust and dirt from mixing with your paint job. Paint fumes can be toxic. A respirator keeps you from inhaling those dangerous fumes. After sealing, the parts are ready for the color coat. Now, if you're trying to match the rest of the car, mix the paint according to the formula provided by the car manufacturer. Spray some test panels and compare them to the vehicle. Continue adjusting color and comparing until you've determined a match. Next, in the paint booth, spray on 2 or more color coats until the color is even across the part. After the color coats dry, you'll need to apply 2 or more clear coats. Because you're painting plastic, and plastic is flexible, you'll need to add a special ingredient to the clear coat to make it flexible as well. Otherwise, the clear coat will harden, then chip or flake off when the plastic flexes. Once the clear coat dries, your plastic part is ready to be reinstalled on the vehicle. Let's recap some of the basics of plastics repair and replacement. First, make a determination whether to repair or replace a damaged plastic part. The decision will be based on the time needed for the repair versus the cost and availability of a new part. Observe all safety procedures when repairing plastic parts. Clean and degrease the part and remove any loose material in the damaged areas. Grind and sand surfaces to promote adhesion. Clean and degrease again. Apply an adhesion promoter to encourage paint adhesion. Apply the adhesive filler to the gouge. Reinforce the damaged area with backing if necessary. Allow the adhesives to cure. Sand the repair. Apply a second coat of adhesive filler if necessary. Finish by sanding the repair smooth. Next, you'll use a glazing putty to fill in the smaller imperfections. Spray on a coat of surfacer to eliminate fine sanding lines. Apply a dry guide coat to highlight any imperfections, then hand sand with 400 grit dry or 600 grit wet. If needed, apply another round of glazing putty to fix any remaining flaws before painting. Mix a small amount of paint of the desired color according to the formula provided by the vehicle manufacturer. Next, spray the paint on a test panel. After the test panel is dry, compare the color with the rest of the vehicle. If it matches, great. If not, adjust your paint color mixture and create more test panels until you get a match. Once you've matched your paint color, you're ready to paint. Remember, whenever you enter a paint booth, be sure to wear a paint suit, gloves, and a respirator. Apply a medium coat of sealer, then 2 coats of color. Finally, apply 2 or more clear coats depending on the finish you wish to achieve. Remember, when painting plastics, be sure to use an additive with your clear coat to make it flexible. Most important, always observe the safety rules for plastics repair. Plastic parts, you gotta love them. In a lot of ways, they make our job easier, and now, you know how to repair them.